There comes a phase in life when everything on the outside looks the same. Yet something inside you begins to shift. You still wake up each morning. You still meet the same familiar faces. You still move through stories you once thought you fully understood. The difference is this: you're seeing them through a different lens. Not because the world has changed, but because you've moved just a little further from where you once stood. And when that happens, a quiet question starts to surface. What if simply changing the way you see things is enough to make life feel lighter? If you're a Pisces, you may feel this movement more deeply than most. So, let's slow the pace for a moment and begin with the moment you paused and started to notice. In every person's journey of growing up, there are moments that feel quietly significant. Not moments when everything suddenly changes. Not moments when a clear answer appears right in front of you. They are moments when you pause. You pause in the middle of an ordinary day. You pause in the middle of thoughts that have followed you for years. And in that pause, you begin to notice something subtle. The way you look at the world around you is no longer the same. Not because something you once believed turned out to be wrong, not because the old path lost its meaning, but because something inside you has shifted into a deeper place. Some changes don't need major events to mark them. They arrive quietly, through a feeling that's hard to name, through the way your reactions slow to things that once stirred you so easily. You start to notice that familiar stories no longer carry the same weight. Emotions that once filled your entire inner space now pass through more lightly, not because your heart has closed, but because it has learned how to recognize and how to arrange. This moment often comes when you stop searching for more explanations, when you stop trying to understand everything all at once. You allow yourself to step back slightly, just enough to observe how you're changing. That observation doesn't come with judgment. It's like looking at a familiar painting, only this time, the light falling on it is different. You realize that the outside world continues at its usual rhythm. People still carry their own stories. Circumstances still turn in their own way. The only thing that's no longer the same is where you're standing. You no longer feel the need to react to everything. You no longer feel responsible for carrying everyone else's emotions. You begin to tell the difference between what truly belongs to you and what you can gently set down. This shift doesn't take you away from who you really are. If anything, it brings you closer to your inner core, a part of you that's lived enough to understand this. Empathy needs boundaries. Kindness needs to be supported by awareness. The moment you pause and recognize this is also the moment you stop forcing yourself to reach conclusions. You allow questions to exist. You allow space to open. You allow yourself not to name every feeling just yet. And that space creates room for you to breathe more deeply within your own life. It's like standing in front of the ocean. The water still stretches to the horizon. The waves continue to follow one another. The wind still carries that familiar salt of time. The only difference is this: the person standing there is no longer who they were yesterday. You're not searching the sea for a message. You're not waiting for a special sign. You're simply listening to the feeling that's clearly present within you. A feeling that suggests you're ready to see things from a different angle, not to change anything right away. Just to understand that growth sometimes begins with noticing that you've already changed. That moment doesn't push you to act. It simply invites you to become aware. Aware that your inner journey has entered a new chapter. Aware that understanding no longer comes from forcing. Aware that shifting perspective doesn't take anything away from you. It allows you to live more lightly with yourself. And from that point of pause, that another story begins to unfold, slowly, deeply, and honestly. After that moment of pausing, you step back into everyday life. The rhythm continues as it always has. Familiar streets, familiar faces, stories repeated so many times they seem to hold nothing new. And then, a feeling emerges. Everything is still there, yet the way you take it in has shifted. The same people say the same familiar things. The same situations follow the same scripts. Emotions that once rose so clearly no longer surge the way they used to. Not because you've grown distant, not because you've become indifferent. It's simply that inside, a new layer of awareness is opening. That awareness isn't loud. It doesn't demand immediate change. It gently adjusts how you exist within each moment. And you begin to notice that reactions which once arrived instantly are now replaced by a slower breath. Stories that once made you feel the need to explain no longer require additional words. You haven't lost your sensitivity. You've learned how to place it where it belongs. This shift often makes everything feel both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Familiar because the world remains the same. Unfamiliar because you're no longer standing where you once stood while looking at it. There are moments when you sit in the middle of a conversation, listening clearly, yet no longer being pulled in the same way. There are moments when you look back on a relationship, not to weigh right or wrong, but to understand that each person can only go as far as they are willing, and within that understanding, yet you begin to loosen expectations that no longer fit. You come to see that empathy doesn't mean carrying everything, that love doesn't require losing yourself, that staying within a story is not always the only choice. This is a phase where you view life from a different emotional layer, a layer shaped by enough experience to know this. Not everything needs a reaction. Not every feeling needs to be held onto. You allow yourself to step back slightly, not to disconnect from life, but to see your place within it more clearly. This shift happens quietly. It shows in the way you choose silence at the right moments, in the way you stop trying to prove how deeply you understand others, in the way you trust your intuition, even when it can't be put into words. There are days when you suddenly realize that things which once made you anxious have become nothing more than small ripples in your mind. You're not trying to become stronger, you're becoming steadier from the inside. The outside world continues its familiar movement. News comes and goes. People carry unfinished stories. Life still holds turns that can't be predicted. But you no longer stand at the center of every fluctuation. You choose a different position, one where you can observe without being swept away. This change doesn't separate you from the world. It allows you to be present in a fuller way. You still feel other people's sadness. You still touch joy, hope, and vulnerability. The difference is this: you no longer trade your inner peace to keep everything intact. As this new layer of awareness continues to unfold, you gradually come to understand that maturity isn't about controlling the world. It's about choosing how you meet it each day. You don't need to change your entire life. You don't need to make major decisions right away. Change begins with very small things: how you listen, how you respond, how you allow yourself to rest within your own emotions. When the world stays the same, but you change, it isn't a form of distance. It's a necessary adjustment, so you can keep moving forward without losing yourself along the way. And from this point of shift, a new question begins to take shape, not to be answered immediately, only to guide you into the next part of the story. When you've moved far enough from where you once stood, something very natural begins to happen. You look back, not to dig things up, not to rewrite the past, but to understand what the steps you once took actually meant. Sometimes, in the middle of a quiet afternoon, a question suddenly surfaces. Why did I stay for so long? Not in a physical place, but in a relationship, a situation, a story that lasted longer than your heart could truly carry. Then another question follows. Why did I give so much? You're not searching for answers to judge yourself. You're trying to understand what you were feeling at that time, to see clearly who you were before everything shifted. When you look back from a distance that feels just right, you realize you weren't naive, you weren't weak. You chose to stay because you believed in what you were doing. You gave, not because you expected something in return, but because your heart, back then, only knew how to love and trust with complete sincerity. Looking back this way helps you see something important. You did the best you could with the awareness and emotional capacity you had at that time. You didn't have the tools you have now. You didn't yet have enough inner stillness to recognize boundaries. You didn't have the experience to tell the difference between connection and depletion. The lesson of looking back isn't about regret. It's about compassion for yourself. You begin to treat the past the way you would treat an old friend, without blame, without idealizing it, simply listening and acknowledging. Some memories, when revisited this way, no longer sting. They become quiet markers, reminding you that you've walked through things that weren't easy, and it's precisely those moments that helped shape who you are now. You come to understand this. Staying for a long time isn't always a mistake. Giving a lot isn't always a pointless sacrifice. Every choice carries a lesson, and every lesson arrives exactly when you're ready to receive it. Now, When you look back, you no longer wish the past had been different. You simply hope that the version of you today is aware enough not to repeat what once exhausted your heart. You don't deny what happened. You don't try to erase it. You just choose not to live there anymore. The past is placed where it belongs, a part of the journey, not a place to stay. This act of looking back brings a very real sense of relief. Relief from no longer having to strain to defend old choices. Relief from giving yourself permission to change without asking anyone else for approval. You learn how to move forward with respect for the person you once were, without pushing them away, without holding on too tightly, only carrying forward what helped you grow. And as that lesson settles, another awareness begins to take shape. That maturity isn't about cutting yourself off from the past. It's about knowing when it's time to let go of it. From here on, you no longer look back to find reasons to stay. You look back to know this. You're ready to step into the next phase of your inner journey. And from that point, another truth slowly comes into view. Gentle, yet strong enough to change the way you keep moving forward. After spending enough time looking back, a new awareness begins to take shape. It doesn't arrive suddenly. It doesn't demand that you change anything right away. It's simply a quiet truth, yet strong enough to ease many of the burdens you've carried for a long time. You begin to understand that your heart doesn't have to be responsible for every emotion around you. From early on, you became used to listening, used to sensing what was never said out loud, used to standing in a place where you could feel someone else's sadness before they even had words for it. That sensitivity was once a gift, and it was also the reason you stayed longer than you needed to. There were periods when you believed that if you understood enough, if you gave deeply enough, everything would eventually work itself out. You didn't do it to be recognized. You did it because you believed that genuine care could hold everything together. But with time, you come to realize something important. Understanding doesn't mean carrying pain on behalf of someone else. Some emotions were never yours to hold. Some stories were never yours to heal. And recognizing that boundary doesn't make your heart hard. It simply places it in a safer position. You can still care. You can still stay close. You can still love with all the softness you've always had. The difference now is this. You no longer dissolve yourself to keep everything intact. This change shows up in subtle ways. You don't react immediately when you sense someone else's imbalance. You listen without blending yourself into it. You remain close without losing the distance that allows you to stand steady. This isn't withdrawal. This is discernment. You learn to recognize what you can walk alongside, and what others need to face on their own. Within this new awareness, you understand that kindness doesn't need to be proven through sacrifice. Care doesn't need to come with exhaustion. There are moments when choosing not to step in is the deepest form of respect for both sides. The image of the tide becomes very clear in your mind. The ocean doesn't disappear when the water pulls back. It retreats only to restore balance. And when the moment is right, it rises again in its own rhythm. You're the same way. You don't stop loving because you choose to step back. You're learning how to love without wearing yourself down. This truth doesn't ask you to change who you are. It simply invites you to adjust how you use your sensitivity, to place it where it's needed, to reserve it for connections that can nourish both sides. And when you allow yourself not to carry everything, a new kind of space appears. Space to breathe, space to feel your own very real needs. And within that space, you begin to see clearly that you don't have to exhaust yourself to have a beautiful heart. A beautiful heart is one that remains whole enough to keep loving in a healthier way. This truth doesn't speak loudly. It doesn't create dramatic turning points. But once it's accepted, it's strong enough to change the way you enter every relationship that follows. And from here, you begin to step into another phase, one where your inner movements start to align with the rhythm of a new year quietly unfolding. As these new understandings begin to settle, you step into a different phase of the journey. There's no clear marker to announce the transition, just a very subtle feeling. When you realize you're standing at the edge of a new year with a different inner state, the new year, as you sense it now, doesn't arrive carrying big promises. It doesn't ask you to become a more perfect version of yourself. It simply brings refinement, small adjustments, quiet shifts, yet enough to change the rhythm of life from the inside. You start paying closer attention to how you use your energy each day. You no longer feel the need to speak too much just to fill the silence. You no longer feel obligated to explain yourself in every situation. You choose to say less. But when you do speak, your words carry more clarity. Clear in emotion, clear in boundaries, clear in what you truly want to keep. That clarity isn't confrontational. It's more like a soft light, bright enough for others to see where you stand, without blinding anyone. Along with that, you become more selective about what's allowed to enter your inner world. Not because you're closing yourself off, but because you understand that your inner space needs care, just like a real place does. You notice which conversations leave you feeling drained afterward. You recognize connections that no longer offer a sense of support, and you allow yourself to place them at a more appropriate distance. This selectiveness no longer comes with the guilt it once did. You don't feel the need to show up just to keep everyone comfortable. You begin to treat inner steadiness as a valid, necessary need. In this new year, your intuition becomes a more familiar companion. Not a loud voice, but a very clear feeling when something no longer fits. You stop rushing to doubt those signals. You listen to them with respect for yourself. Intuition doesn't give commands, it offers suggestions. And you learn to trust those suggestions without needing immediate proof. Some decisions in the new year don't need to be announced. They happen internally, quietly, yet with real stability. You adjust how you arrange your time. You create more space for recovery. You allow yourself to rest without labeling it as laziness. These changes don't pull you away from life. If anything, they help you show up more fully in the moments you choose to be part of. You begin to realize that you don't need to become someone else to begin a new year. You don't need to copy any model to feel like you're on the right path. What you need is simply to return to yourself, but at a more mature level. A level that understands sensitivity is a strength when it's held within healthy structure. A level that knows self-care doesn't make you selfish. The new year becomes a space for you to move at your own pace. Not to delay life, but to walk through it with greater awareness. You don't have to change everything at once. The shift happens through very small choices. A well-timed refusal, an evening reserved for quiet, a decision that doesn't require long explanations. Each small choice forms a new rhythm, a rhythm that fits more naturally with who you are now. And as you move deeper into the new year, you begin to notice something else. This refinement doesn't take anything important away. It simply helps you hold on to what truly matters. From here, another feeling slowly begins to form, a sense of readiness to receive what comes your way without carrying so much defense. And that's when the final message is ready to reveal itself. As this journey slowly comes to a close, what lingers isn't a clear conclusion. It feels more like a sensation, light, yet meaningful enough to carry with you into the days ahead. If there's one thing worth holding on to after all of this, it may be this simple realization. It wasn't the world that changed you. You simply became ready to see the world through a different set of eyes. Eyes that no longer need everything to make sense right away. Eyes that can accept the blurred spaces without rushing to fill them. Eyes calm enough to recognize what needs to be kept close and what can be gently allowed to pass. That shift doesn't make you feel unfamiliar to yourself. If anything, it brings you closer to your inner core, a place where sensitivity is no longer a burden, but a form of emotional wisdom, shaped by experience. You don't need to prove this to anyone. You don't need to name it. You can simply feel how the way you move through your days has changed, the way you listen, the way you choose to respond, the way you allow yourself to rest without carrying a sense of obligation. Each small adjustment adds up to a change deep enough to help life feel easier to breathe from the inside. There may still be days when things feel heavy. There may still be moments when emotions return with clarity and force. But this time, you're no longer alarmed by them. You recognize that you're capable of standing steady, even without needing to control everything. And sometimes, changing just one angle, not the entire picture, is enough to make your inner space feel wider. If you're still listening, let this be a gentle reminder. You don't have to become someone else to keep moving forward. You only need to continue walking with awareness, with compassion for yourself, and with the trust that every inner movement has its reason. This story doesn't end with a promise. It simply pauses here, so you can carry forward what feels most true to you. And when you're ready, the next journey will open on its own, in its own way.